Of course, equations get more difficult as we go on. And so now we're going to look at multi-step. And we've worked on this in class, so I'm going to refer to some of the stuff we've done in class. And the idea with multi-step is, first off, do any simplifying you can do. I promise this helps so much. Now, you don't have to do it this way, but it does really help to simplify things first. For example, if I have 7x minus 3x minus 8 equals 24. Again, I have this idea of a balance, so whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. But that refers to if I'm adding things to it or doing something crazy. If I'm just doing the math that it says, I'm just going to do the math that it says. And what I mean by that is right here it says that I have 7x's take away 3x's. That math is already happening. And so when I do 7x minus 3x and I get 4x, I'm not adding anything to the equation. I'm not changing the equation. I'm just simplifying. And so I don't have to do anything to both sides. I just do the math that's there. But I still want to keep it balanced. I'm still looking at this as my balance here. Okay, and so what I always suggest is getting rid of your green guys first. It's easier to add and subtract blocks than it is to split into groups or make groups. So just taking away or adding blocks will simplify things a lot for you. So if we look at this, the green guys, I have that minus 8, so I'm going to go ahead and add 8 to both sides. Right, I get my 0 pairs here. And so on the left side, I just have the 4x. On the right side, I have 32. And then I have 4 times x, 4 groups of x. So I'm going to do the inverse of that. I'm going to divide by 4. And so I get my 1 here. And so I just have x equals, and 32 divided by 4 is 8. So I get x equals 8. So multi-step. Go ahead and get rid of your green guys first. Do your adding and subtracting first. Then do your multiplying and dividing after that. But before any of that, simplify. So let's look at another example. Okay, so here's an example. This is a crazy one. You know, I want to do complicated ones with you because I want you to see that it really doesn't matter how complicated it gets. You just do your math. So once again, we've got our balance scale. The left side has a lot going on. It looks really heavy over there, even though it's worth the same amount as the right. And so I'm going to look at what math is going on. Is there any math I can do before I start solving? And I see a bubble. And that bubble has a number in front. It has that 5 in front. And so remember when we have a bubble with a number in front, we distribute. We do that rainbow method. But I also have to be really careful because that 5 has a negative in front. So I'm going to look at that as a negative 5 going with and distributing. I'm not doing anything with the 2x. The 2x is not in front of the bubble. So I'm going to go ahead and just write the 2x. The minus 5, I take that times the x, I get minus 5x. And then I take the minus 5 times the minus 9, negative and negative, I get a positive, so it'll be a plus 45 equals 27. And it still looks pretty complicated on the left, so I'm going to look at that and see is there any math I can do there. And if I look at this, I see I have a 2x minus 5x. I can simplify that. 2 minus 5, that brings me in the negative world, right? I have negative 3x plus 45 equals 27. And now as I look at the left side, there's still stuff going on, but there's nothing that I can do. I can't put my x with the 45 or anything like that. So now I can start solving. So now we start with our green guys. Are there any green guys I can get rid of? Remember, our goal is to get this x by itself. So I'm looking for green guys I can get rid of. I can get rid of that 45, right? I can subtract 45 from both sides. Those cancel out. So now I just have the negative 3x on the left. This is getting a lot simpler, right? I'm still balancing it out with my equal sign. And then I have to do the math of 27 minus 45. And I get a negative 18. Okay. And then I need to look at my equation again. It's gotten a lot simpler. And I have a negative 3x times, or negative 3 times x. So to get rid of that, I'm going to do the inverse of multiplying. I'm going to divide by negative 3. I'm going to bring the negative with it. Again, I'm trying to get that x all by itself, and I don't want the negative there either. And so when I do that, these 3's become 1. So now I just have 1x, or as I like to write, just x, so I don't have to write the 1. And negative 18 divided by negative 3, I have a negative, put it in the opposite world, I get a positive 6. Okay, so that is solving multiple steps. You know, of course I can show you other examples, but honestly this is pretty much it. One more example, I guess. I'll show you one more example. And that's where when you have a bubble, you might not do the whole rainbow distribute it. Because if you look here, if I was to take 4/3, I just want you to imagine taking that 4/3 and multiplying it through. That 3 on the bottom is not going to cancel with the x, and it's not going to cancel with the 7. So I don't necessarily want to do it that way. So I look at it another way. I look and I say, you know what? Really what I've got here is I've got a fraction being multiplied times something. I don't care this is a bubble. Just think of this as something. Like we could even just look at it as being an x, right? If I had 4/3 x, one of the ways we talked about getting rid of that before was multiplying by the reciprocal, right? Because then your 4's would become 1's and your 3's would become 1's, and so you would just get an x. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Even though I don't have an x, I have an x minus 7 in a bubble, I'm still going to go ahead and just multiply by the reciprocal. But then I have the scale, right? So I need to keep it balanced, so I multiply by the reciprocal over here. So my 4's are 1's, my 3's are 1's. So on the right-hand side, I now don't need a bubble anymore because I just have x minus 7. I don't have any numbers outside of it. On the left-hand side, I have some simplifying here. Let's see, 4 goes into 4 once, 4 goes into 24 6 times. On the bottoms, I just have 1's, so I can ignore them. 3 times negative 6, that's negative 18. And I have this balanced thing because I've been doing the same thing on both sides. And now I can get rid of that 7. It says x minus 7, so now I can add 7 because remember our goal is to get x by itself. Add 7 to both sides. And so on the right-hand side, my 7's cancel out, the 0 pair out, so now I just have the x. On the left-hand side, I have negative 18 plus 7, that's negative 11. And there would be my answer.